So this is our agenda for today. We're going to start the day with a good friend of mine, Dr. Travis Taylor, who's the instructional tech specialist for Little Rock School District. I'm going to pass him now the presenter status so we can hear from him. 3, 2, 1. Okay, you have the presenter status, Travis. And we're going to hear from you talking about the community of inquiry model for learning online. Very interested in what you guys are doing. And we see your slides. I'm trying to, there you are, you're unmuted.
Okay, so you can't see my, you're not seeing the presenter's view because I've got multiple monitors and I'm trying to make sure I'm not.
Yeah, I see it. It says, it's purple. It says the Community of Inquiry Framework for Blended Learning. I'm double checking my operations panel, make sure everybody can see that. Yep. Everyone's seeing it.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, let me say thank you to the Learning Council and Leilani for allowing me this opportunity to be with you this morning. I want to talk about briefly about this Community of Inquiry Framework. And so, as you know, with the shutdown that took place, particularly in March, there were a lot of things that we really learned and we kind of looked at, you know, how we responded. And so we were really concerned about, of course, there was always these conversations about how we should be teaching online and what are we going to do, because, you know, at this point, it wasn't a choice, really. You know, we're up until a certain point, you know, we had the freedom to say if we were going to do certain things online, if we were going to move and do a lot of instructing online. So the shutdown really forced us into some areas, and we had to take some long looks at what was being done. So going into the new year, we have one of our schools was decided to do a boot camp, and in this boot camp, they wanted to kind of get an early look at how to learn online. And so one of our top instructional technology specialists that we have here in the district is at that school, and so she reached out and said, we want to do this boot camp, and we want to really look at, you know, teaching online and not just providing apps, but actually, you know, what is going to be involved in teaching online. And so I presented to her the Community of Inquiry model. And so what we did was we kind of used this in the boot camp with this school to start using this. Now, this model is actually, it's been set up, it's more or less for higher ed. It was kind of constructed around higher ed. So we've been trying to adapt it for K-12 education. And so how we can then use this going forward. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So we're looking at this model, but the first thing I want to talk about in this model really is, because we know we have the 7 principles of online learning, where there's the student and teacher contact, the cooperation among the students, the active learning, which, you know, in active learning, you're not just looking for the rightness or the wrongness of answers, but you are asking the kids, you know, how did you come to this answer? Why did you choose that answer? And have them, you know, in a sense, and sometimes defending their position, which is not either right or wrong, but, you know, what are your thinking processes around answering these questions? And of course, there's prompt feedback, time on task, communicating high expectations and respect to the diverse ways of learning. But what I really, to start this out, I came across an article by a Dr. Walcott from 1996. Now, at this time, we were doing distance learning. It was still, I guess, it wasn't as prominent as it was now, but she brought up a thought around psychological distance. And so when I started looking at the article, and if you read the article now, you'd swear that the article was written in 2020, because even though it was 1996, she brings out some very crucial points about, you know, when you're learning at a distance and you're not physically together, what happens. And so in the psychological distance, and so we look at this as our why. So this is, so you're saying, well, we want to know, well, why would we look at community of inquiry model when they're going totally online, and for teachers are trying to develop lessons online. And so our why is because of the psychological distance. The psychological distance refers to the psychological effects of physical separation. That is how real physical distance functions psychologically. It also refers to the mental dimension of separateness or dissimilarity between people. So one of the things that happens is that when we're no longer together, when we're no longer seeing each other eye to eye, we begin to then create these models in our minds of what may be happening with the other person, or what the other person may be doing, or what's going on with the other person, because we're isolated. And so the effects of psychological distance is that one is that the rapport becomes damaged between the teacher and the student, because you don't have that physical, you're not in the same room. And so there are some things about physically being in the same place that the virtual space really doesn't imitate well. And then there's the interaction that's hindered from all of this. But one of the biggest problems is the isolation, this feeling of aloneness, that even though that you are separated, and even if you're using cameras and webcams and that sort of thing, there's still this isolation that's going on, and this feeling of separateness between not just the students and the teachers. But when we actually brought this discussion up at the boot camp, at that time, one of the changes we had made during March was that we had some of our related arts people who teamed up with the core people to kind of help co-teach. And so they really weren't doing a lot of related arts work. They were more or less helping co-teach in the core areas and kind of blending the curriculum there. But one thing that they mentioned is that even at that time, they felt isolated from the district. They felt isolated from the educational process, even though they were still involved with the school and involved with their coworkers. But because they themselves were not teaching and spending full time in their areas, to say like particular band and instrumental music, or the art classes where they couldn't physically be with those kids, they said they began to feel just really separated from the district, even though we were working every day and talking and communicating. But psychological distance contributes to the sense of apartness, and the perceived separateness and dissimilarity functions to keep us at a distance socially, psychologically, and interpersonally. In addition to feeling isolated, distant students may feel removed, alienated, or extreme disenfranchised. In a word, they may feel distanced. So we have the community of inquiry framework, which was created by Dr. Garrison out of Canada. And it's a theoretical framework that represents a process of creating deep and meaningful collaborative constructive learning. But at its heart, I know that we've talked a lot about personalized learning and those sort of things, and trying to really dig down and reach those students personally and in their own areas. But one of the things that community of inquiry model does, it centers around bringing the students together as a community and using that collectiveness to do inquiry work, to learn, and to feed off of each other. At the same time, that community is keeping everyone together and keeping a sense of safety and a place of where they don't feel so much alone. So we're going to kind of look at how the model goes together. So there are three main sections to the model. There's social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence. So we emphasize teaching presence and not necessarily teacher presence. So all of these three elements combined together, working together, is what's creating the educational experience online for the students. And so I'm going to go through now and just kind of break down the different presences and what they mean and how they relate. So when you look at teaching presence, teaching presence is really the catalyst for setting up how the class is going to run, how the interaction is going to work between the students, and that sort of thing. So that's where the design process is taking place within teaching presence. But ultimately, what we're really trying to get at is we're trying to create this area of social presence, so that there is a feeling of community, where we're eliminating this sense of apartness and aloneness, but that the students are communicating, they're collaborating, they're talking to the teacher, and we have a place where ideas then are being generated from feedback, from the collaboration, which then adds to the cognitive presence. So cognitive presence is where the actual learning is taking place. But in an online environment, you're really going to have social presence. And that's why the social presence circle here is larger, because that's really one of the more critical pieces of this model. And if you look at, if you ever look at any of the adjacent research to the community of inquiry process, you will find out that social presence is one of the key factors, that and teaching presence, that if those begin to diminish, you can forget about having any type of cognitive presence where learning is taking place. There's so much apartness and separation that that the work is not going to get done and the kids are going to check out. So we're going to look at social presence. So social presence then is the ability of participants to identify with the community, to communicate purposely in a trusting environment, developing interpersonal relationships by way of projecting their individual personalities. And the projecting their individual personalities is key, because we've always heard that word, student voice, and how the students can speak and relate, and they can make and have their own voice. So that's another benefit of the social presence, is we create this environment to not only to create, but help sustain student voice. I hit the wrong button. So the social presence attributes. So emotional expression, where learners share personal expression and values, where there's open communication, where learners develop aspect of mutual awareness and recognition, and group cohesion, where learners build and sustain a sense of group and commitment. Cognitive presence then is the extent in which learners are able to construct and confirm meaning through sustained reflection and discourse. And that key of that, that reflection is actually really a key part of talking to those students, relating to the students, and understanding why, and not just reflecting about the classwork, but reflecting about how they're feeling in the class, reflecting about the conversations that they're having with their peers, or the conversations that they're not having with the teacher. But again, this is where that social presence allows for this to take place and really sustains the cognitive presence feature. So then in cognitive presence, which is more centered around your inquiry-based models and problem solving. So the cognitive presence is built out where there's a triggering event, where there's a problem is identified by the class, by the curriculum, where there's exploration. The students they individually explore the issue, but then there's integration, where the learner concepts, meaning, and ideas are formed, and they begin to come together, and they begin to look and integrate those pieces together and come to the resolution of solving the problem or providing those answers. So this is what's taking place in the cognitive space. So this is why you've got to have, in order for this to take place, you're going to need that environment where there is a cohesion and collaboration for that to really take place. So when we look over then at teaching presence, then this is where you design, facilitate, and direct the cognitive and social processes. So, and these are where the presences are really monitored and they're maintained, because in the teaching presence, there is the work that has to be done at the beginning of how you're going to set the class up, what tools you're going to use, how you're going to introduce the tools to the students. You're setting the tone of how the class is going to go, the expectations for behavior, and the remedies for when those things are not taking place. They have to have that space to reflect and talk to you as an instructor, but also being able to reach out to those students when you see, particularly when the teaching presence, monitors that social presence and that cognitive presence. And when they see that there is a falling away, where there's a student that's starting to check out, then the teaching presence is also responsible for then going out and bringing that student back in, or in that case, maybe helping to find support or some type of additional support for the students, maybe something with the family, something to help keep that student engaged into the learning. And so one of the things that I was concerned about here, and I've spoken about, and I was just reminding us while we were planning, was that we're not trying to get an over-reliance on the technology. We're not trying to pull rabbits out of hats, because if we're starting to try to rely on all of the plugins and all of the attachments and things that we can do, we may find ourselves running out of gimmicks by November, and we've got to go through May on this. So we've got to have a steady and a solid process for how we're going to teach and bring those students and engage them in the classroom, and not over rely on all of the special effects of the technology. So The teaching presence method then, as I mentioned earlier, first is the instructional design and organization of the class. How you're going to set, how things are going to go, what are you going to use. Then there's the facilitating discourse of understanding how you're going to control how you're going to manage the course climate, how we're going to deal again with the reinforcing student contributions and if students are falling away. And then there's a direct instruction. And in this piece is where we're actually looking at the discussions and the presentation and the questions that the students may have. So then what does this look like? Because I've thrown a lot at you. And so Dr. Fiat, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name correctly, she put together a list of things that need to take place in her document. So I took that and then I mapped the teaching presence to this, because she actually lays out a she creates a very good roadmap of the different aspects that take place. So if we're going to design social presence or set up social presence in our courses, I took the teaching presence and adapted to what she put out, and so to map it, to kind of give you a picture, a conception of what this would look like. So when we say the instructional design and organizational piece, this is where you distribute the information about the course. Again, we gather information about our students, their goals, expectations. We begin to write our objectives, and this is the planning process. And then as you move across under instructional design, this is where then the next level, then you start planning those collaborative activities that you base of how you're going to run the class. You're going to design how you're going to set up your small groups, or how you're going to have the students relate to each other. And you start really working out the finer points of the instruction and the building of the team. And then as we go deeper, you're incorporating the active learning techniques such as role play, discussion groups, and case studies and stuff into the course. Now, when you move down to the facilitating discourse level of this, so this is where the facilitating of this. So let's say we've gotten our class, we know what we want to use, and we know how we're going to set the class up. Then we're designing the things like how we're going to use icebreakers, how we're going to learn and use students' names, and begin. This is additional part of setting up the course, and these are more the finer points of creating this and making it happen. And as we move across there, you'll see in the case having students share their experience and use students' experience to draw individuals into discussions. I bring that point up because when we talked with the boot camp team, one of the things that the teachers that we also mentioned that you can do is that the teacher can introduce a video in the course as you're opening up and just show that, this is the things that I like to do. I like to plant, I like to fish, I like to do this. So we had one teacher said he was going to make a video because he has a pond outside of his yard, and in his house, and he was going to make a video showing the students that how he likes to fish and all the things that he likes to do, because what they're trying to do is draw the students in and say, hey, we're breaking down the psychological distance to say that I'm just like you, or we have things that are alike. We have interests that are alike. So you like to fish, you may like gaming. There were teachers who were talking about they like gaming. So these things they're trying to, again, address the rapport, because remember, psychological distance said that rapport tends to be damaged in psychological distance. And so we use this model, and as we're designing the social presence and we're bringing the kids in, we're looking at how we're going to relate to the students. We may talk about games, the latest games that are coming out, but anything to just create that safe environment, create that area where the kids want to come every day, just like they do physically, and they feel that they have something to contribute. And so when you look down at the bottom section of direct instruction, and this, she goes into talking about communicating with the students outside of class, how you're going to initiate calls to check on student progress. And as you work across, she begins to bring in other members of the staff. In other words, work with the library staff to facilitate access to resources for the research, collaborating with other team members at the school to make sure that whatever resources that are needed from those groups, that they're made available. And as you move across, you're seeing places where they're providing timely feedback to the students to respond to questions and turn around assignments. And so this is very crucial, because if the teacher checks out, then we really have a problem. And so, we saw it in some areas back in March, because there was that fear of teaching online and not knowing necessarily what to do. So we brought this model as and with this test group to start seeing how can we then address this, not just from the student perspective, but also from the teacher perspective, so that they don't check out, so that they feel a part of the classroom, and then can provide the students the best environment and information that they have for the learning. So this pretty much concludes the model. Because there's really a lot to this and a lot more, but this is I want to kind of condensely and kind of give you the best overview of this concept. And so at this time, I'd just like to know, are there any questions about this model or any comments that you have?
Well, I'm going to go first while people sort of think through what they want to ask or what they want to say. And I just want to say that, you know, I fall back on the physical experience of going to school. So this is really rocking my world, what you're talking about here, because when you're physically moving yourself around and eyeballing other people and, you know, nodding your head, I see you, or anything that a teacher does in the classroom, that, you know, you take roll call and you have people raise their hands and think that's the physical manifestation of being involved. And you're right, when you're all on Zoom meetings, you're not even sure who's looking at you when and if you're there. You know, it's because you haven't physically moved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that act of physical motion is really missing. It's the thing that's missing. It's not just distance. It's like you're not moving. And this is really a serious thing, because most school districts right now have some level of AWOL kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not showing up. And now you're talking about a level that is even deeper, which is the mentally not showing up. Parent might put you on the Zoom meeting for the day, but you're really not there.
And one thing she even mentions, and that's what's so interesting about this article, is, and even in 1996, she said, even if you have a camera and you have some type of live viewing, you're only seeing that aspect of what the camera sees. You're not seeing the total room. You're not seeing the lights, the colors. You're not experiencing any of that. So this tunnel view that you have of the classroom also adds to that. So I think we think that just if we turn those cameras on, that we're doing, yeah, well, at least they can see. They're only seeing this little, like peeping through a keyhole, in a sense. And so you're not really getting that much from the camera.
Yeah, the dimension is gone. Everything sort of looks flat to you. It's a very interesting thing, because there are some people that think dimensionally. They project, right? They project themselves into like the other dimensions they see. They don't stay in their own, like mentally, they're not just where they are physically. They're mentally somewhere else as well. They're like, you know, literally projecting themselves. And I used to study that aspect way back when, early on in my career, because in sales, a lot of people have to do a lot of business over the phone. And the most successful people were ones that didn't accept distance. They projected as if they're there with you, talking to you, really listening deeply, kind of a thing. And it is a skill that has never really been taught to all the teachers in America. The thinking with, I'm with you, I'm not just here, I've projected into your space too. And kids not actually having that skill either. This is a serious thing in education right now, because we're mentally allowing a barrier when we don't necessarily have to. We can sort of think beyond. We can go through the internet and be in other places dimensionally in our minds, but it's a skill. How do you do that? Like, so everything that you've brought up is fascinating to me, because you've just identified the exact thing that is the problem with all this trying to do online learning, and kids are not engaging. I mean, this lack of engagement, I think, is so much deeper than people really realize.
Exactly.
that's affecting achievement nationally. I mean, just we have like a national thing going on that is just really not good for learning. What else are you thinking with in regards to what a teacher can do to make the student feel like they're engaged? Could they like, have like just big sharing moments where every student's assigned, like tomorrow during the roll call meeting, every one of you is going to enact something. You've got
Well,
1 minute.
yeah, and
Yeah.
actually, if you look deeper into this model, those are some of the things that they type, in the planning. You know, I didn't talk about a lot of technology, but tools like Flipgrid and these things are really. This is where places like Flipgrid and stuff really shine, is to have those areas where those kids are reflecting, and we come in and talk and we share, because a lot of times, kids want to talk, they want to share, they want to demonstrate. And so
Mhm.
that's what we're really trying to do in this model, and with the technology. We're taking the technology and not just using it to, we're using it to kind of allow that kid to express and allow the teachers to express and create this place for saying it's just okay. I know that we're not all in the same place and someone may be afraid or they may be scared, but you're reconnecting the classroom and trying to really reconnect that relationship they would have with their friends and with the teacher. But those technologies such as Flipgrid and I can't think of just things like clips and all those things. Really, the use of video really helps to really enhance and kind of bring some more humanity kind of back into. Like I said, with the teacher, he was going to not just film and talk about his pond. He was going to video and walk around the pond and walk around and here's my fishing pole and this is what I do. What do you do? Do you like to fish? And when you fish, well, how many times have you fished? And those types of things to really try to bring the kids in and bring it back to a natural, to bring it back a little more natural space.
Yeah. Yeah, but it also what the kids could do, right? So what could they do? Could they do like a little cheer routine, make up a cheer routine, or make up a exercise routine and show us your exercise routine, like video
Exactly.
it.
Particularly when you're looking at the iPad and you've got garage bands, you
Hmm.
create, all types of your own cheers, your own music. You can, your own little rap, whatever that is you want to express. Like I said, even expressing it about the coursework, even to keep that in line with the coursework, how you want to present the coursework is what we really want to, start looking at that in an open fashion. I know that we have certain things that we have to do in the curriculum, but we talked about this for years about using the iPads and to be using iMovie and using all these video tools and music tools. But now we're really at a place where we really need to use them. We really need that stuff to really solidify these classrooms and to make them more a place that's more that's safe feeling in a sense. Because you're right,
Hmm.
they're checking out, and but one of the things that, like I said, at the school that we were using, we were actually meeting again this month to go back and kind of look at. So now, since that we've introduced this back in July. Now that we've gone through during the first quarter of school, we want to kind of look at how that has played out, and with the students reaching out to those kids and really trying to keep them in the classroom and keep them engaged and coming.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation. I think there's probably a million ways to peel this onion in terms of how you're causal with engagement. Uh, but the inducement to actually feel like you're not distance
Mm-hmm.
is also just saying that, I think it's like, hey, we're together. And today is yellow shirt day and tomorrow is blue shirt day. And, everyone like get together. And this is, there's probably, like I said, a million ways to skin the onion, but because it's just, this is a deep conversation when you're not physically in motion and physically arriving in a physical class where you have dimension and you're sort of mentally moving through the wires to a distance place. This is a totally different reality. So it's like,
And,
oh, how do we build that? I'm fascinated with this. I think this is a whole,
and we
3-hour conversation we could be having.
talked about the issue of a lot of students who don't want to use the camera because they're ashamed of their background, of what they, of their home, of what they have. We don't, and we talked about. I was actually having this conversation at home this weekend with some relatives because they're, I was talking to my nieces and asking them, how is it going, and they were expressing, I don't want to turn my camera on. I really just not like. I would participate if I don't have to turn my camera on. Even those things we have to take in consideration. I know we want to see their faces, and I know we may maybe we can say, hey, turn the camera on for 10 seconds, let me see you. But a lot of them, there's some who's, they don't want that. They don't, that's gonna separate them, cause more angst and breaking that rapport with the class and with the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that that's an issue. I started hearing that was an issue back in April. My good friend Keisha brought that up from T-Mobile Corporation. And so I had one of my writers do an article on, do a search within the, internet, found on IKEA, the $4 curtain rod you can hang from a ceiling.
Right.
You can run a $10 curtain underneath it and you have a backdrop, right? Also a $10 desk for students. I think this is an issue that districts have to address. Like, do you need, as a home's, when you're at home, do you need a backdrop and do you need a desk? I think we're handing out devices, but we're not asking some of those other really important questions.
Do
because
they have a place to do their work?
Yeah, because you have to have that, and you have to have an environment for this. I think it has to be asked about because, that was something found out early by Los Angeles USD. They had AWOL kids because of environments. You can't have mom running in and yelling at dad in the background. It's like, that's not going to work. This is definitely a moment. It's also something to be maybe fully explored in terms of what are the protocols. Like you just showed a lot of things that could end up being, step 1, step 2, step 3. Have you gone that far so far in terms of formulating policy?
No. We are at this point still, again, dealing with a lot of the, of course, looking at the attendance and trying to make sure the kids are there. And we've been really doing a lot of in making sure they have the resources. We're in the process of handing out hotspots, even more hotspots and devices, and working with our ELL communities to make sure that they know how to get on the devices and to get, turn on the hotspots and going through just basic computer basics with a lot of our communities, because we just assume that it's a laptop and they can just, and it's not. It's a different thing. And we've really been focusing a lot on those resources of just like I said, bare bone basics. There's a computer. Here's how you turn it on. Here's the screen. Here's the camera. Here's the internet. We take that stuff for granted because we may use it every day, but there are communities out here that don't. And what do you do? What do you give them to keep them engaged, to keep them creating that community there?
Yeah, but you're causing me to think there needs to be a checklist. Like for students that are not engaged, it's like check 1, what's your environment? And do you have a corner? Do you have a place where that you normally would be? And is your chair comfortable? And is the backdrop acceptable to you? Because if not, then we need to ship your little curtain your mom or dad can anchor to the ceiling with what, and then that you have a backdrop behind you all the time. Is it quiet? Is it have enough light for you? And is there power to that corner? Maybe you're at a kitchen table. What's the, there's just a million questions here, but we've basically made satellite environments for schools in every home in America. And we have to be concerned about this because this is, if it's stopping learning, then we have to think about this stuff. It sounds maybe a little bit intrusive, but it's also care factor, like just caring about the student, like, are they comfortable enough to arrive mentally? Because you already have so many, distance alone is the barrier. So this is fascinating. I think this is really going to grow as a conversation. I'm so glad you brought it up. Yeah. So I don't see any questions coming in. I think people are probably like, like some of the other topics that we've been bringing up. All of America is new to this whole thing, right? So,
Hmm.
it's just sort of a moment, and a lot of what the Learning Council is presenting right now is like, oh, got to chew on that for a little while, including our workshops, right? We go really fast through a ton of material, and the people are like, whoa, I hope they recorded that because I'm going to have to watch it 3 more times. So we are recording, and we're going to put this out so everybody nationally can find out about this particular take on what's going on, because I think it's huge, and it's probably going to, generate another whole, like I said, policy area and concern area, because I don't think this is going to go away anytime soon.
No.
Some people are talking late spring, even before a vaccine could come out. And I don't think
Yeah.
this is ending anytime soon. So I'm so glad you did this. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I appreciate, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. Always enjoy working and learning from the Learning Council. This is a great organization, and there are a lot of great resources and a lot of great people that are involved. And I just like the passing of the ideas and being able to share and pick up things and meet people who are doing things just, that are just out there that a lot of times you don't think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And someday we'll get to be together again, physically. That'll be awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Taylor. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to turn now to introducing one of our sponsors. So I'm releasing you into the wild, unless you want to stay on, which would be great. I'd love for you to stay. But thank you again from all of the Learning Council, all your peer edu Jedi for joining us today and sharing what you did.
Yes, thanks again. Yeah, but unfortunately, I am going to have to jump into another meeting, of course, right behind this one.
Well, come back if you can. The same login works all day.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, because we have some other really interesting characters that are going to be sharing, right, from Metro National, and then Shelby County, Belton School District is sharing at the end of the day. Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm taking back the screen.
Hi, I'm Tice Miller, founder and CEO of Mobilemind. Mobilemind is the modern professional learning hub that's designed to enable every single teacher to effectively integrate technology like Google into their instruction. In 2015, I started this company to solve the biggest challenge stemming from mobile and cloud technologies hitting the classroom, and that's the lack of adoption by teachers. The traditional means of professional development were falling short in the face of the complexity and the pace of change of all this new tech, and PD suddenly required a new approach. So we partnered with Google. We spent 3 years doing research and development on how to best address this new and growing issue. Today, Mobilemind solves the biggest failure points that prevent teachers from the effective use of G Suite tools, which can negatively affect student outcomes. And some of these include lack of teacher buy-in, no personalization, no time for PD, and now more than ever, the need for accessibility to PD anytime, anywhere. So most districts have accepted that the majority of their teachers weren't completely leveraging their instructional tech tools. And the current pandemic has further exposed this reality. And the new normal means we must ensure all teachers are comfortable with using technology, whether they're in class or remote. Before I show you a short video, let me say this. Mobilemind's not like anything that you've seen before. This is not traditional online learning that teachers don't enjoy. We have taken methodologies such as SAMR and activity-based learning with personalized feedback and infused them into the most innovative cloud-based learning solution. So please contact us for a live demonstration of Mobilemind and learn how we're impacting schools and districts all over the country. Thanks so much and take care.
Google's G Suite and Chromebook one-to-one programs are revolutionizing education like never before. But despite many benefits for teachers, schools, and students, most schools are falling short of their implementation initiatives due to a lack of effective professional development. But how do you effectively cater to teachers with different technological skill levels, learning styles, and schedules? Designed specifically for Google use in K-12, Mobilemind solves these challenges by developing the modern professional learning hub for schools that is personalized, practical, and incredibly convenient for educators. Unlike traditional professional development, Mobilemind is cloud-based, so teachers are able to learn at their own pace whenever they have time in their schedule right from our Chrome extension. And since content is broken down into micro-courses with practical applications, progress can be made minutes at a time instead of committing to hours per session. Mobilemind is tailored for individual users, accounting for skill level and previous knowledge to challenge each educator appropriately. Learners demonstrate competency by completing performance-based Google challenges and receive ongoing individualized feedback from Mobilemind's team of certified educators. Finally, Mobilemind's data and reporting allows teachers to view their individual progress while providing schools and district leaders with the key metrics they need to evaluate the impact of virtual professional development throughout their district. Mobilemind's combination of cloud-based learning and tailored microcourses result in an average increase of 362% in the use of Google in educators' day-to-day teaching. Visit us at mobilemind.io and request a consultation and demonstration of our innovative professional learning solution.